Hello, and welcome back to my series of screencasts on basic business practices for graphic designers. So today's screencast is on finding your break-even point, which in many ways is an answer to the age-old question of how much do I charge for this? As a teacher and a graphic designer, people have asked me this question over and over and over again over the years. And it basically usually shows up roughly in the first year after graduation, and people start, trying to earn a living with the skills they've acquired in school. And they get, their first big project that they can pitch on. And then it's, panic mode. What do I do? How much do I charge? What's a fair price? Should I charge 50 bucks, 500 bucks, 5,000 bucks? And a lot of people just don't know where to start. Now, there's a false assumption in the question, and that is that there is a specific price for a specific product or service. And that's not exactly how business works. So the first thing that people have to do is think of not the project, but themselves. What is their business? Like, how do you make money? How much money do you spend a month, for example? So a lot of people start going into business without knowing, rule number one, like where do you actually leave the red and start going into the black? Now, this screencast is actually a follow-up to a blog post that I did back in January of this year, which is how to find your hourly rate and charge a fair price. And I do talk about, at the beginning, students asking questions and stuff like that. And as I said, the question assumes that the project has a fixed value, which it doesn't. And as I say over here in this paragraph, imagine you're creating a website for a small shop just around the corner. You may be able to charge a couple of $100, maybe a few thousand for a small store. But take exactly the same website and sell it to a corporation. Now, what if that corporation was able to draw $100,000 worth of revenue from the website in a year? If you build them $50,000 for the same website, you could sell to someone else for a couple of hundred or maybe just a few thousand. But a corporation, if they were going to make $100,000 off it in a year, paying $50,000 is a bargain. The website would pay for itself in 6 months. So the value of your work changes according to the context. So it's not like, okay, a business card is worth this much and a poster is worth that much and a website is worth this much. So that's the first thing. There is no universal rule. So if there's no universal rule, the rule of thumb is get to know yourself, get to know how much money you need to break even, and then calculate your rates from there. Now, a lot of students are, they're young. A lot of them still live at home. Expenses are minimal. That's a good thing. So you don't have to charge that much to actually break even and start making a profit. The older you get, the more independent you are. If you have kids or not, if you have a car, expenses go up. So you have to be able to keep on track of where your money is. In other words, get to know your cash flow so that no matter what happens, you're going to be in the black and not in the red. So in the blog post, I created a little section here called Find Your Hourly Rate. And it's really 3 little steps. So number 1, calculate all your monthly expenses. So everything that you spend. So your rent, your electricity, your phone, your internet, your computer, your software, all that stuff. How much money do you spend a month so that when you start billing clients, you get at least that much? And you factor in some for paying your taxes, and of course you want that profit. So the profit is going to be the money that you're going to have fun with. So some of it you can reinvest in your company, you can buy, faster computer, or you can save it up and go on vacation at the end of the year. But you have to cover your expenses and then get a little bit more. So how much do you spend? Number 2, how many hours can you work a month? When you're a student, that's not, 35, 40 hours a week. So if you're a student, you may be able to work 10, 15, 20 hours maybe. That really depends on your situation. But the rule of thumb is calculate everything, divide that by how many hours you can work, and as you can see here, number 3, divide A by B, and that gives you your hourly rate. So if we take an example down here, if you have $1,000 worth of expenses a month, but you can work 100 hours a month, so 25 hours a week for 4 weeks, divide $1,000 worth of expenses by 100 hours, you need to be making $10 an hour in your pocket to be able to break even. So that's not that much. That's basically minimum wage. So, of course, graphic designers are worth a lot more than minimum wage, but you get to see over here that you can actually really not earn all that much and actually start making money. So in class, what we want to do is we want to give ourselves a tool that will let us analyze different scenarios, different expenses, different, situations, different incomes to figure out where, your billing should be. And I made a very simple sort of spreadsheet in OpenOffice. Now you could build this in Excel, Microsoft Excel on the Mac or on Windows. You could use Numbers if you're on a Mac. You can use OpenOffice on pretty much any platform. So whether you're using Linux or Mac or Windows, you can install this too. So as you can see, all we've got is, a column of expenses. So how much you pay for rent, how much do you pay for your electricity, your internet, your cell phone, blah, 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 all the way down. The amount over here in this column, how many times you pay that a month. So some things you will pay once a month, like rent. Food, you may, go to the store 4 times a month. You'll have a total, and the magic happens over here where we've used the spreadsheet to actually add everything up so that you get a total of your monthly expenses. So for example, let's use some round numbers. Let's say you have $1,000 worth of rent a month. Now, $1,000 paid once, total per month, $1,000 worth of monthly expenses. Now, the spreadsheet here is built upon the idea of a 35-hour work week. So you're not a student anymore, you're working full-time. But if you take that amount here and you divide it by the number of hours that you can actually work, here 140 hours, so 35 hours times 4 weeks, you have to actually, spend $7.14 just to cover your rent. So you need to be making that at least. Now, the magic number in business is taking your expenses and marking them up. So for example, if you were making shoes, imagine like a Converse running shoe. There's not a lot of materials in a Converse running shoe. You got a bit of rubber, a bit of cloth, and, labor. But if you take, let's say, the cost of a shoe, let's say, it costs $5 worth of materials to make the shoe, and you turn around and sell it for $50, well, there's a huge markup there. So the markup is your profit. It's the money you take to, go buy more materials and actually make more shoes. So you actually run the business on the amount that you charge relative to the amount that you spend. So here I put a 300% markup. So $7 of expenses marked up by 300%. I would be charging someone $21 when it actually costs me $7. Now, the markup is where you're going to be adjusting your the value to remain competitive. Now, obviously, someone who's in school, for example, charging $21 an hour may or may not be competitive. You might want to adjust that down to be, let's say, more maybe in the $15 range. So let's say, what if we replace that with a 2? So at 200% markup, you are charging $14.28. And if we take a look at the rest of the numbers, the taxation rate over here is established by the government. So I looked up the Quebec government income tax rates. So if we take a look over here on the Revenue Quebec website, income threshold and income tax brackets. So a 16% taxation rate applies if you are making just under $40,000 a year. If you're making over $39,060 but less than $78,120, you pay 20%. So basically $1 out of every 5 goes to the government. And if you're making more than $78,000 a year, you're paying 24% taxation. So over here, we've got the numbers there, and I put 16% over here because the total that I've got is below 39,000. So you are spending 1,000, okay? You break even at $7.15 an hour. You can mark that up and charge people 14. Out of that 14, you're basically going to pay $2.28 to the government. And if you remove the tax, you're basically making $12 an hour. And that gives you a profit ratio of 168%, which is pretty good. And if you extrapolate all these numbers and you go, okay, how much money are you making a month? So income tax or income after taxes are paid times 35 hours times 4 for the monthly, you get $1,600. You make close to $700 profit spread out over a year, $25,000 coming in, and $8,000 profit. So what we really want to do is we want to try and figure out just how much money you need to break even and factor in absolutely everything that you spend. Now, all of this so far in the example is based on the idea of paying $1,000 rent, but there's other things that we have to pay. So if you're living in an apartment, you need to pay hydro. So let's say $50 worth of electricity a month. Now, you're doing design, you're definitely going to need to have access to the internet. It should be high speed because you're going to be zipping files back and forth. You can't afford to wait all the time, so let's say $75 worth of internet. Now, you may have a cell phone, which most people do nowadays. It's a great way for clients to reach you when you're not in the office. So let's add, let's say, another $75 for that. A landline. You don't want to be zapping your brain with cell phone microwaves all week long, so you have a landline. So let's put, I don't know, $50 in there. Now, you're going to need insurance, so let's say maybe $40 there. How much do you spend a week on food and clothing? So let's say that you're single, maybe that you're not spending all that much, so maybe $50 a week, but times 4 weeks over here. So per month you're spending $200. And you're running a business, so obviously you're going to want to have clothing. You want to look nice when you go meet clients. So let's say conservatively, maybe $30 a week, $120 per month. Now, all of this adds up over here to $1,610. You can see by double-clicking the cell that everything that's in this column over here gets added up automatically into my monthly expenses. And once again, all the math gets done automatically, okay? And my yearly income now is actually over $40,000. Oops, I have to change that to 20%. I have to come over here and modify this value because I just went over the threshold. Now, based on $1,610 worth of expenses, okay, I am going to start charging people close to $23 an hour. Okay, once again, this is where my break-even point over here is $11.50, but I want to make some money. I need my profit, and therefore I can charge $23, pay my taxation, which is $4.50, and actually get $18.40 in my pocket. Now, once again, I have to insist that you have to be very careful with the markup value. The markup value can be anything, but competition will restrain the options that you have. You cannot go and put, 500% markup in just any market. If you're the sole designer in the area, maybe that's possible. But in a market, especially one like Montreal, where there's a lot of graphic designers and a lot of actually really good ones, Montreal is a mecca for training designers, you will not be able to just mark it up any which way you want. So you have to have, do a bit of research, have an idea what the environment is like, and mark up your costs accordingly. You want to be relatively conservative so that you can get clients, but the main thing is to not go too low. A lot of students, graduating from any school, whether it's John Abbott College or one of the private schools or university, will wind up on the job market with no real idea of the value of their work. And the problem with that is that they undercut the market. So they will accept, for example, to do a website for $500 when it should be sold for $5,000, and clients get used to those bargain basement costs. And then when they turn to another one who is actually charging the real price for something, they have a hard time, because they find it grossly exaggerated when in fact it's actually really fair. So when you actually make your break-even spreadsheet, what you need to do is be very fair in everything that you spend. You've got to be really critical, going, okay, I live in one place, but do you have a car? So what do you spend on the car? So the actual car payments itself, the insurance, the gas, your driver's license, your permit and everything else. You also have office expenses. So you are going to, buy a computer. You're going to have software. You also have to factor in that you are going to be upgrading this thing probably, every 2 or 3 years. So if you take, let's say, the cost of a new computer, and let's just make a round number, $2,000 with $1,000 worth of software, $3,000 divided, let's say, by 36 months, and that would be, of course, 3 years, you're going to be spending about $83 a month. So if I just sort of put 83 here and 0 there, so total cost, $83 once a month, it adds up. But that's going to actually keep you having an updated machine, updated software. We all know that the Adobe software, for example, gets updated roughly about every year and a half. Your computer has to be able to run the new software without getting too slow. That's your productivity. So you really need to be able to be on the ball that way. And it just all adds up. We are now close to $1,700 a month worth of expenses. You've got to make at least $1,694 to be, in the black and out of the red. And, you just fill out all of this, and that really gives you the idea of where to start. In the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate, different career options and see what their salary scales are and compare that to what you need to be able to make a profit. So we will be doing this spreadsheet in class using the software that we have installed. So that might be Excel, that might be OpenOffice. We'll see in what lab we're going to be. But the bottom line is, when you are out there trying to make a living, concentrate on what you really need. So what are your expenses? When do you start making money? And if you run a business in such a way that you're always going to be in the black, you're going to be fine.